Hey everyone, and welcome along to this week's Footy Talks, brought to you, of course, by Benjamin Moore. All stores are now open. Let's kick off with TFC and what happened last night. Since we last did the show last Thursday, of course, TFC went into Vancouver and lost by 3-2. And that really meant, KJ, that last night, as Greg Vanney and a couple of the players said coming into that game, a win was the only option for TFC. If they were going to stand any chance realistically, rather than crossing fingers and hoping that there was no way Montreal could get anything in Vancouver, TFC have set their stall out. We mentioned it on the broadcast, Stevie, last night. They expect to be a Champions League club, not just doing well in Major League Soccer. So although this was just a mid-September game that counted for Canadian Championship points and also for the regular season in a very strange year, this was a huge night for TFC, wasn't it? And a huge night, the way they managed to get the job done in the end.
A massive 3 points. You know, you laid it out there perfectly in terms of the format and the Canadian Championship. I think you know, revisionist history will probably tell us that if Montreal go out to Vancouver and win both those games and get what they needed to be done, then TFC can probably tell the tale of, well, you know, we won 4 out of 6. You know, we thought we did probably enough, and in the end it maybe. But if they'd only won 3 out of 6, particularly the way they played over the last 2 games, I think that they would have said, we left too much out there. We didn't perform to the level that we needed to perform. Now, we can still say that, knowing the result. They didn't perform to the level that I think that they probably should have over the last 2 games. But I do think that ultimately they got the result that they needed to, and that is a sign of a crucial team. In the end, Rudy Camacho brought a massive, giant, big present on there and wrapped it and handed it in a bow and presented it to them in their lap. But you got to take that, and Altidore was there to take it, Stevie. So I think that they'll feel like right now they're on pole position for that final spot, knowing that Montreal have still got a couple of laps to come.
Yeah, I think they are in pole position. I think it'll be difficult for Montreal to go into Vancouver and win comfortably, get the goals that they need to pick TFC to that first place, KJ. And I think in many ways, TFC are really fortunate. I think they've took the foot off the gas. They've been very complacent for me in this round of Canadian Series games. I think that they're head and shoulders above the Montreal Impact and the Vancouver Whitecaps. Now, you know, I don't say that flippantly. I really believe the quality of play, the continuity, the understanding that these guys have compared to the other 2 sides is far superior. So for me, the fact that we're still even discussing that this is in the balance is a little bit of an indictment on TFC. Again, last night, I don't think they were at their best. I think there's still some things to work on for sure. Within the kind of formation and the lineup of players that Greg Vanney's picking, for me, everything's still coming far too narrow at times, and that would be a big issue of mine if I was the head coach of TFC. And I feel like they're still moving the ball a little bit too slowly. But when you have players like Altidore, and we mentioned it numerous times in the broadcast, he wasn't at his best, he wasn't sharp, he didn't look like the Jose we know he can be. He's still capable of just putting that one chance away when it comes along. And the gift from Camacho, I've watched it 10 times, KJ. I don't know what he's thinking. 2 minutes to go. Our draw's good for the Impact. What kind of pass is he trying to play, and how wrong does he get it?
Yeah.
It's awful from Camacho, who had a really strong game and has been forming a brilliant partnership with Louis Binks. Real big mistake at a vital time, and TFC capitalised and punished them.
Yeah, I don't think if they have a free kick like that in the same position in the future at that time, I don't think he'll be the one taking it, put it that way. You know, you need somebody with a bit more of a distribution. You almost need someone like Ty Dare at that point to forget the fact that he's down there trying to score a goal. You could see for 10, 15 minutes, Luke, that they basically played for a draw. Montreal were happy days. You get a draw here, we're in this. So, yeah, I don't know what he was doing. It's a sideways pass into the midfield. Credit to Nick DeLeon, who looked up right away on his left peg and fired the ball over. And then Altidore got his shush moment with the Montreal fans again.
I think I said in the broadcast that, you know, this is going to go in the channel and go long and then, you know, cut to an ISO. We come back and all of a sudden De Leon's just clipped my lovely little ball over. And because of Camacho's position and where he played it as well, the line was all wrong. Louis Binks stayed a bit high and it was just disastrous from the Impact. And I couldn't believe it, KJ, that decision was made at that time. And it's probably going to cost them a place in the Canadian Championship final and inevitably maybe a place in the CONCACAF Champions League for 2021.
Yeah, and right at that moment, if that hadn't happened, Montreal are coming out of there with a point and going into Vancouver in a much different situation in terms of their ability to get through. But now they have to go and win both in Vancouver, and they have to overturn the goal differential as well, which TFC have, I think it's 3 better right now, +4 to +1 in terms of the way it's all set up there. I don't want to say I don't see Montreal winning 2 in a row in Vancouver, because it could happen, but with all the travel, with the fact they play Sunday and Wednesday, the Whitecaps coming in off the back of the win against TFC last week, you've got to figure that, on any other circumstance, any other given set of games, Montreal go there, win in a draw, or win one, lose one, and that'd be a pretty satisfactory trip out west, KJ, for Thierry Henry's side.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit more positive than Stevie. I think if they play the way they played at BMO Field, they can win by multiple goals in both games, and that's enough. You have to remember how good they were. We did the game last week, and to be fair, we get a lot of things wrong, but we were right on it from the start. I said to you guys in the pregame show, this team looks up for this. That you could see right away from the warm-up when they went out there and beat TFC. It was a big night for Thierry Henry, and I don't think he'll want to let them forget that. They weren't at their best last night compared to that, but they weren't awful either. There was a lot of good signs, and they found a system, they found a shape, that they don't rely on a number 9. You guys talked in the broadcast about Boyan. Where does he even fit in that team at the moment? That's probably a good thing, because he's found the shape and system. The midfield is working. And I think that, look, the Whitecaps won the game on the weekend, and every credit, they deserved it. But TFC were terrible defensively from set pieces. So, if the game is from open play, Montreal will look at that and think, we can beat these guys by a couple of goals, similar to the way they did and they thought that at home. But it is tough, obviously, to go away and win any league, away from home twice in a row, Stevie. But I do think that Montreal and Thierry Henry are finding a bit of a formula here for consistency that looks like it's going to pave their way towards a playoff berth finally.
Yeah, I think they're a better team than the Whitecaps, KJ, and I think they've found a more consistent style in the last few weeks and months, maybe coming out of Orlando. MLS is back. I just don't believe that they've got the goals in them, and right. It's not a crazy amount of goals. So, could Kyoto get hot and Taider score a couple of goals? Potentially. I just don't know if that happens in 2 games in quick succession. They're still missing that number 9. They're still missing that real killer instinct. And I love Kyoto. I think he's brought a lot of personality to the team. But I just don't believe that he's the future in that position. And I also think that while Piet does a great job and Samuel roll his sleeves up to play in any position, he'll do his absolute best. He does so many great things for the team. He's not a creative player. And he gets into some nice areas and, he gets the ball and he just doesn't have that creative instinct to find the pass or to put it in the back of the net for 20, 25 yards. So I think they'll find the goals hard to come by. I wouldn't be shocked if they win both games. But I just think with the travel, like Luke said, and, the quick succession, it'll be difficult, but not impossible. Let's keep an eye on it. Still, it keeps it open, doesn't it? It keeps these games exciting, and we'll see what happens.
I'd like to get your thoughts on the show today. If you're with us on Zoom, use the chat. If you're on Facebook, you can leave a comment there and we'll get the questions as well. We've already got 2 or 3 questions related to Toronto FC. Matthew says, what can we make of TFC's attitude this season? It seems they're only going half-hearted. What do you reckon, KJ?
I can see where he's coming from. I wrote a piece, an essay for TSN at the start of MLS's back tournament that aired that was called What If? And it was basically around what if they can reach another level? What if they go to another gear? What if we see a better collective defensive display? What if Piatti, Pozuelo can be matched? What if Altidore scores consistently? Can this team become the best they've ever been? And I still think that they have it in them, but we haven't seen it yet. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. We are playing the same teams over and over again. They're miles away from knowing any kind of destination. There's a likely move to the United States coming where they're battling with families they're not going to take them with. So there's lots of reasons why they've not made it there yet. And so as analysts who are analyzing performance, we have to consider all of the factors. And there are many, as I've just mentioned a few. But the facts are that they haven't reached those levels yet. And I think they've been quite disappointing. And Greg Vanney will be aware of that. He's got to go to bat for them publicly. But I think it will keep him up at night a little bit before his eyes finally fall asleep at night, Stevie, every night thinking, how do I get the best out of this team? And is that, motivation? Is that tactics? Is that a little bit of everything? Is that leadership? How do they get everything? Because I still think there's a lot of things that they could reach another level. I really do.
Yeah, I believe there's a great deal of improvement in them, KJ. And I think that I would never suggest that they're playing half-hearted. I know everybody goes out on a football field and gives their absolute best, but I just think there's a few things that are off with TFC that need to be fixed. I think there's a sense of complacency there a little bit where they overcomplicate things at times on and off the ball. And I think that they cause their own problems in many ways. And I think that'll be a concern for Greg Vanney, because that's the sort of habit that you don't want in any team, and it's hard to pinpoint how that habit comes. I think it's unfair to blame the head coach. I think it's even unfair to blame individual players. I think it's sometimes just an accumulation of the group, of different mindsets, different ideas, different things, and then it becomes a complacency and an inconsistency that we've seen from TFC since the beginning of the season, since March, or late February, March, when they played in San Jose, where they were scintillating at times, absolutely magnificent, and then come away with a point. And we saw the same in MLS's back. Again, magnificent first half against DC United, draw 2-2 against, 10 men. And so there's these themes just keep coming up. Magnificent against the Whitecaps in the first game of this phase one. 800 plus passes, 3-0, could have been 7-0. And then the next game, not so great. And then obviously the 2 defeats in there as well. So I think that inconsistency is a big issue for them. And I'm sure Greg Vanney is awake at nights thinking, how do I get these guys to their maximum? If he gets that group to their maximum, they can win MLS Cup. But at the moment, they're nowhere near that for a number of different reasons.
Julian asks, can you guys speak to the issues of set-piece defending? Lately, it has been shaky in the past couple of matches, certainly in Vancouver. Certainly it was again last night with the goal that they conceded that they took a look at on the VAR. Greg Vanney did say that he felt after the weekend in Vancouver, some of it was down to the fact that obviously they didn't have Chris Mavinga there, so there was a change at the back. But also he felt that they missed Michael Bradley's presence in terms of the leadership, in terms of the voice as to where the line is, as to making sure everyone isn't missing assignments, that sort of thing. Stevie, is that maybe a reason why the last couple of games they've looked off it in terms of defending set pieces?
Yeah, it could be. I think leadership really comes into it when you're talking about defending set pieces. It's about that one guy or a few guys really to say, right, who you got? Are you here? Are you in your right spot? These things are worked on in the training ground, and that could be another issue. Has it been worked on enough? I've been at some clubs where we did set plays the day before a game for 45 minutes every single, Monday or Friday before the match. And did we concede a lot of goals for set plays? No. And was it boring? Absolutely. Guys would be moaning. But
who was that with, Stevie?
That was with Birmingham, with Chris Hughton, actually.
So of all the managers you worked with, Chris Hughton was the one that drilled it the most in terms of set pieces?
Chris was the best. There was no messing around. It was after every single day before the game training session, and it was serious. And if anyone was joking around, he was right on top of it. And lads hated it. I mean, I didn't hate it so much. Curtis Davies and I were at the back predominantly in that season in the central area, and obviously we were 2 quite dominant centre-halves, but we would keep everyone in check. And when a free kick came in a wide area or it was a corner kick, I felt so secure that we weren't going to concede a goal. So it might be some of the work that's not been done in the training field that needs to go back to being done. But ultimately, it's about responsibility and accountability, KJ. It's about a guy saying, I'm in this zone, or I'm picking up this guy, and over my dead body is anything going to happen in my area? Is my guy going to score? And I think in many ways, it's a team effort, but you have to get very selfish about the fact you're picking up someone, or you're in the front post zone, or you're on a post, and you're going to make sure that nothing happens in your area and nobody can point the finger at you at halftime or at the end of the game. And I don't think that's happening with TFC. People are switching off. People are worrying about other guys' roles. People are thinking about when this gets cleared, where am I going to run to next, instead of just dealing with the situation at hand. It's not happening right now, and they need to address it really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, they've been pretty good up until now over the last few weeks in terms of defending. I asked Greg Vanney about that, and he actually he brought the set pieces up himself before this run. But as you said, it's about switching off. It could be you just throw it into that same pot as the complacency a little bit because it's the same thing. But what I will add to it, obviously it's an enormous part of the game. I will add that we see this huddle here if you're watching the show with the TFC all united together. And everything I'm saying, I'm not having a go at them because it's true, but everything we hear from the club is how close-knit they are and how they're bonded by friendships and the world that we're in, and there's love for each other and compassion and camaraderie. And I believe it, I see it. And that's where you need to see it as well. That's the moment where you come together as a team. And that is the next step for Greg Vanney right now, is that when you say, is this team 100% switched on whistle to whistle? They're not. And that's where they can try and keep working on it to get there, because, there's a long flight home from Vancouver and there's a lot of pondering you can make, because there's absolutely no way you should be losing a game to that team. No way. You can lose a game of football. Man City lost to Norwich. You can lose a game now and again, but you shouldn't be losing the way that they lost it.
Let's get to the Benjamin Moore do-it-yourself play of the game. And we didn't pick Josie Altidor's winning goal last night because it was gifted to him by Rudy Camacho. We did pick the first goal. If producer Kev can share the screen, and we will see this. Richie Larea last night popped up on a left-sided midfield role, because of course he did, because he's excelled on the right, so why not try this? And Westberg plays it to Richie Larea. Off he goes. And as we see it come back there, it's just this moment here where Binks thinks he's got there, Stevie, and then Larea finds another step, and what a run it was to turn defence into attack there. It starts with Westberg, by the way, as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does start with Westberg. I tried to say that in the broadcast. I'll try and be brief here because I think I've talked more than enough about this goal. I want to hear what KJ thinks, but brilliant thinking from Westberg to come out and then realise he's sliding out the box to then make the pass. Then it's all about Larea, and I just love that part, KJ, where he has a vision. He sees Louis Binks. He looks like he's going to stop and he's going to maybe check out, look for support. And Binks just delays and comes alongside him. Then Larea realises he can just burn him on the outside. He can use that pace and directness of his and get there. And the one point I want to make is that Richie Larea would not have assisted in this goal 12 months ago. Right. Richie Larea would have turned out. He would have came back round. And it's the evolution of him as a player. His confidence is sky high. He's realising his quality now, and he's maximising all that potential he has. Brilliant signs from Richie Larea. He's been excellent this season, and that goal's all about his work, isn't it? Yeah,
fantastic turn that allowed that to happen in the first place as well, when he receives the ball and turns and then goes. Yeah. But you said it's about the desire, head up, courage and confidence to believe that he can do it and push forward. And that's what TFC need more in the team. They need more pace. And I think that's one thing that playing him in an attacking position gives them more pace and directness. We all know about Piatti and Pozuelo's skills and intertwining and coming deep and causing the problems, and obviously in between the lines. But you need that pace down that side, and Larea provided that. There was a quick shot there as the director cut to an ISO. Who did they cut to an ISO of? Zachary Broguillard. Why? Well, obviously because he was involved in the play prior to that. But we know in Montreal's system that Broguillard gets really, really high. Really high, and quite often what Thierry Henry's adapted is a little bit like what the Tottenham Hotspur system do, where the back two move over again, the left back Raitala comes in and plays like that Ben Davies role where they move into a back three, and Broguillard is just given license. And I think what Greg Vanney knew, having played Montreal already, is that they need to target that space, and that's what bringing Larea into that team did last night. If Piatti was playing over there, then it's different because he's coming inside and Broguillard can just go, but Larea broke through. And boy, oh boy, did he make it his own. And every credit that, Piatti was the one following up. But they need a little bit more of that directness. And as you said, Richie Larea, everywhere he's positioned on the field, everywhere he's asked to do, he delivers.
I ask this bearing in mind what the next question is from Christopher on Facebook, who wants to talk about Erickson Gallardo and does he have a future at TFC? Thought he would be playing on the left or right, switching with Piatti. A TAM player, yet Endo gets in ahead of him. Think that we need more width and pace. Says Gallardo plays once every month for 20 minutes. We expect him to perform, yet other players get more chances. Greg Vanney said he's a good guy. He wants him to be a little bit more aggressive. We've only seen him flashes from Erickson Gallardo. Maybe we can talk about Gallardo in a moment, but the first question before that is there anyone else, Stevie, that could have done what Richie Larea did last night in that TFC lineup?
No, there's not enough pace in the lineup, and they're becoming a bit predictable, and that's what we were talking about a bit earlier, about everything coming into the middle, and as great as Piatti and Pozuelo are, and I love watching them play, they're brilliant players, but it's the same kind of style. They slow things down at times and everything comes in the middle, and at times...
But Gallardo has that pace, doesn't he?
He does, but he's been a poor signing, it has to be said. He's not played enough minutes. He's not...
a right-sided player too.
Exactly, and he's not been trusted by Greg Vanney, and Greg sees him every day, so I can't comment on whether he should get a chance or not. I don't know enough about the lad because I've not seen him play enough, but he looks to be quite inconsistent. With the games that we did see him, he looked like he couldn't last very long. He had fitness concerns, and so in that regard, and what are we? I don't know, when they signed him at least a year ago, maybe 18 months ago.
It was the same time as Omar Gonzalez in that July transfer window there.
So a year plus ago, and there's been a big break with COVID, but that's not good enough. If he's not breaking into the team, he's a TAM signing, then you've made a bad signing there. So what I will say is that if he's not good enough, then cut your losses, try and move him on, get someone else with that money if you can do it, or get the guy in the team, give him a chance. Let's see what we can do. Larea and Gallardo, I know that they'll need to mix it around to get everyone in the team, but it sounds like that would bring the pace in the wide areas, KJ, that they're maybe needing at the moment.
Yeah, what I would say is if he can't get in the team when the team's crying out for width and pace, if he can't get in this team, then it's probably not going to look good for him going forward. I know he's a TAM player. Just to clarify, I don't think of him as being a $1 million+ player because they used TAM to buy it down. So he's not anywhere near that level of player. It was almost like a project anyway when they got him. But as you said, it hasn't worked out at the moment. I could talk a lot about this. I think that, for me, I do think that the recruitment of the team in wide areas has been poor for many years. I think Greg Vanney has had a desire to want to play a certain way and has been let down by poor recruitment. And people talk about how brilliant Tim Bezbatchenko was and the recruitment that he got, and he got a lot of things right, but they didn't sign good wide players then. And now you could say, they've got an abundance of wide players, but there's very few players that he trusts in that position. You can talk about Schaffelberg or Endo or Gallardo that can really play in that position for a long term. Piatti's been a sensational signing. I thought he was excellent in Vancouver. I thought he was their best player. He looked tired last night. And you got to be careful about the fatigue and minutes from him. Now you've got a bit of a runway to get some rest. And I think you need to. For me, I'd just be giving him as much rest as you can because without him, the team will look even more predictable. But you're right. They need more pace. And for me, it always comes back to one thing, Pozuelo. And Pozuelo this season is playing as a 10. And he's a true 10, and he's really a second striker. It's not even a 4-3-3 system, and coming back, defensively, his responsibilities are very, very low. And I think that's because they don't trust him to give him any more. He's worked hard at the game, but it's nowhere near his best position. It's nowhere near his best factor in his positioning. But they want to play him as a 10. So that means how do you get the midfield numbers and the wide areas and pace together? And they tried it with Osorio out wide. Now he's central, which I like him better in. I think it's time maybe to try this system if Michael Bradley comes back with Osorio next to him. I think that brings more directness and quality in midfield with those, and try and maybe leave Larea and Piatti on there as well. So I think that might be something they can do. But if Pozuelo's playing as a 10, you've got to get the pieces around him right. He's a massive part of the piece, but the other areas have got to be right. And right now, I don't think they've quite got that balance right at the moment.
Over the course of the next week, Vancouver and Montreal playing twice. Those games will be on TSN. TFC fans will be interested, of course, to see if Montreal drop any points, then TFC will be heading to the Voyageurs Cup final. We don't know when that's going to be. And if either of, if the MLS teams have to move to the US, then quarantine, do they come back in to play Voyageurs? That's another question that goes around the scheduling and how things are going to play out between now and the end of the season. But TFC with a keen interest in those Whitecaps Montreal games. And then hopefully by the time we do the show next Thursday, we know when and where the next games are going to be. And once that's all confirmed, we do have a promise from TFC President Bill Manning to come on Footy Talks in the next couple of weeks to explain how they've managed to get to where they are and where they're going to be going and what's going to be happening. But for now, still a lot that's up in the air. We'll see you for Footy Talks again, same time next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.